All right, let's jump right in. What we've got today is basically a field guide. Think of it as a diagnostic toolkit for those really frustrating kind of invisible problems that seem to pop up in every workplace.
So, we're going to start with a bit of a mystery. It's that feeling, you know the one I'm talking about, where something at work just feels off, but you can't for the life of you figure out what it is. Just think about your average Tuesday. Does the air feel a little thick? Is there this constant, low-grade tension that doesn't really have a clear cause? It's a feeling a lot of us recognize, but we really struggle to give it a name.
And you start to see these really specific signs. All of a sudden, people aren't really saying what they think. The decisions coming from up top just seem bizarre, totally out of left field. And that project stress, it never really goes away. It just becomes the new normal. These are all just symptoms of a much deeper problem.
So, what is this hidden culprit? Let's actually give it a name. We're talking about a phenomenon called deadly incentives. Now, these aren't some obvious, mustache-twirling, villainous rules. No, they're sneaky. They wrap themselves up in perfectly nice corporate speak. You know, words like accountability or high standards. But what they actually do is reward behavior that ends up hurting the team.
And here it is. This is the golden rule for spotting them. Forget the mission statement hanging on the wall. You need to pay attention to what actions actually get rewarded. What's the path of least resistance? What's the absolute safest thing you can do to protect your job? That's where you'll find the real rules. Okay, and this is absolutely crucial. We are not hunting for bad people here. We're looking for bad patterns. This whole thing isn't about blaming your boss or that annoying coworker. It's about seeing the system that's shaping everyone's choices.
All right, time to get practical. Let's open up our field guide and learn how to spot these things out in the wild. Okay, here's our first sighting. Picture this. You're in a big meeting, a major decision is on the table, and instead of a healthy debate, you just hear crickets. That silence, that's a huge sign that the real incentive might be to punish anyone who points out an error early. You'll see everybody just nodding along way too quickly. You'll see these massive, thorny problems that suddenly appear out of nowhere, like the day before a deadline. And you'll definitely hear that classic excuse, "Well, I didn't think it was my place," which is basically code for, "It is not safe to speak up here."
So if you want to confirm your sighting, just ask yourself this one simple question. What happens to the messenger? If the first person to raise a red flag gets blamed or embarrassed or their career takes a hit, well, you've found your deadly incentive. Silence has become a survival skill.
Let's move on to our next sighting in the wild. I like to call this one speed theater. This is what happens when the appearance of moving fast becomes way more important than actually getting things right.
The signs are everywhere. A constant, frantic sense of urgency, but with almost no clear direction. You'll see leaders getting praised for making decisive calls, even if those calls turn out to be total disasters. And you'll see teams quietly redoing the same work over and over again, which is the hidden cost of prioritizing speed over thinking.
So here's your diagnostic question. When someone pipes up and says, "Hey, maybe we should just take a day to think this through," how is that received? Is it seen as a smart, wise move to avoid mistakes? Or is that person treated like they're weak and incompetent? The answer tells you everything you need to know. And our third sighting is a real classic, knowledge hoarding. This is when information isn't shared freely. It's held onto like a dragon guarding a pile of gold. The hidden incentive here is that having exclusive knowledge is a form of job security.
The symptoms here are so obvious once you look for them. There's always that one critical piece of software that only Dave knows how to use. The documentation for anything important is either missing or completely out of date. And new hires, they can't get a single thing done without going through a specific gatekeeper for approval or information.
And the question that just cuts right to the heart of it is this. In your company, if you take the time to teach someone else everything you know, does that raise your status, or does it actually make you feel less important, less essential? If sharing what you know feels like a career risk, you've definitely got a knowledge hoarding incentive.
Okay, spotting these one by one is great, but let's be honest, sometimes you just need a shortcut. So, I'm going to give you the single most powerful tool in this entire field guide.
Here it is. Just ask this. Your company values almost certainly say things like, "We value honesty," or "We value collaboration," but what does the system actually, quietly punish in day-to-day life? The gap between what's said and what's punished, that's almost always where the deadly incentive is hiding. And this leads us to a really important way to reframe all of this. Using this field guide isn't about making moral judgments or calling people out. It's about thinking like you're debugging software. You're not looking for bad people, you're looking for design bugs in the system.
Missing feedback loops or flaws that were created by way too much short-term pressure.
And this brings us to what's probably the most important part of all. Because once you can see these bugs, you get the power to stop blaming people and start redesigning the system.
This really is the core idea. As long as you see these issues as some sort of moral failing in other people, you're going to be stuck. You can't fix someone's character. But the second you can give this systemic problem a name, the second you can say, that's speed theater, that's when you can actually start to solve it.
And this lays out the path forward so perfectly. It's a really simple 3-step process to go from feeling angry and helpless to actually having some real agency. First, you just name the incentive. Second, you make a conscious choice to stop blaming the people who are caught in its trap. And finally, you start asking design questions, like, hey, how could we make it safer for people to share bad news earlier?
And we'll end on this thought, because it's the ultimate takeaway. Stop trying to ask people to be heroes and constantly swim against the current. Instead, focus all your energy on changing the direction of the current itself. Because if you have a system where honesty is dangerous, then being silent isn't a moral failure. It's just a smart adaptation. And once you see that, you can actually start changing the system itself.